All right, we're going to welcome our next speaker, Colleen Schabacker. Colleen's currently retired. She spent 35 years of her career in respiratory care and management. She's very involved in the TSRC for over 20 years. She spent 10 years as a delegate of the AARC House of Delegates. She then became a member of the board of directors for the AARC, holding the office of director, secretary treasurer, parliamentarian, and vice president of internal affairs. So please help me welcome Colleen Schabacker as she presents Dealing with Generations.
No, how do I get off this?
Is that your presentation?
Yeah. Hi, I'm here. Give me 1 second, technical. I want the presentation, not my presentation. I want the big screen.
Do presentation mode.
I don't know how. Okay, I'm going to get some help here to go to presentation mode. So I'm going to go on. So this is our last talk for this evening. And I know that you're ready to get off. I think we are too. But hopefully it's been a very, very good day for you. So if the people are out there, I want you to raise your hands. Everybody raise your hand. You got them raised? Okay, now everybody unraise your hand. Unraise your hand. Great. All right. So this is a fun presentation. So, and I talk pretty fast, so hopefully maybe we'll get out of here just a little bit early. So we are understanding generations. Here are my objectives, but you don't need to read that. That's okay. So here are the generations I'm going to talk about. And when you read different literature about the different generations, you can see different dates as far as when they consider a veteran generation, boomer generation, and it really just all depends upon who you're reading. So as I go through some of the characteristics and work ethics of our different generations, I also want to let you know that there might be some blurring. And by blurring, I mean, if you are a Generation Y, but you are raised by a boomer, your characteristics might be more like Generation X. Or if you were born in 1980, you could blur a lot with Generation Y. Does that make sense? Okay, if real audience, you can nod your head, but here I will just say, okay, it makes sense. So let's move on. The veteran generation from 1922 to 1943. There aren't too many of these guys around anymore, and most of them are not in the workforce. However, they are very much our patients or our volunteers. So I want to just briefly go over some of their characteristics, etc., because they help to create the next generation. So I feel it's important that you know their characteristics. Very dedicated. You can read this. Duty before pleasure. Remember, this generation is duty before pleasure. Adherence to rules. Very military influence. Their parents fought in World War I. World War II is not about to happen yet, but it's about to happen. And they have been through depression. They have had a lot of conflict in their lives, a lot. So some defining moments for them, stock market, again, they lived through the depression. So if you see a person of this age, they don't throw away anything. They will be hoarders because they might need it someday. They lived through World War II. They fought in World War II. They remember Hitler when invades Austria, Pearl Day, D-Day in Normandy, FDR dies, Korean War. This generation, very militant, as you see, raised by parents who went through World War I, and this generation went through two very severe wars. And they had their heroes, Superman, FDR, MacArthur, Patton, you can read them, all guys, either military, a superhero, or sports. They love consistency, loyal to US products. You never saw this generation drive around in a Hyundai or a Toyota. Of course, they weren't around that time either, but they're very, very loyal to US products. They like being shown appreciation and respect for what they know and where they've been, and they deserve it. They're overly cautious. This generation put men on the moon, built Hoover Dam, filmed The Wizard of Oz, partly in color, lived through the Depression, and they're very, very dedicated to their workplace. They're loyal, dependable. They would start a job and retire from that job. They didn't job hop. They loved consistency. And again, they loved discipline, mainly because of their military upbringing background. In this generation, men are men and women are women. And I don't mean that to offend anybody, but men definitely had their roles different from women. So the men would mow the lawn, take care of the car, change the oil, do the driving, because a lot of the women didn't drive. And the women did the cooking, the laundry, took care of the babies, cleaned the house, etc. Totally different roles. And were they modeled after John Wayne? Oh yeah, they were. Yeah. So when you're with these people, you need to keep gender roles in mind. They had their roles in their own day. You don't rush them. And some of them, believe it or not, aren't too bad on computers. So principals in a workplace, again, even though they're not working with us anymore, they loved to motivate and coach, and they did that to their children. They're dedicated to their job, never left their job. They're team players, and they need to feel important. To this generation, nothing came easy. They had to work for what they had. This is a total belief for this entire generation. Nothing came easy. You work for what you get. So guess who they created? Da-da-da-da! They created the best generation ever. Of course, I be a baby boomer. That's why I can say this. And I don't mean to offend anybody as I talk, but I'm really going to make fun of every generation as we go. So let's talk about my generation. This is the me decade. Why? Because our parents fought in a war. Our parents believed in hard work. When they came home from that war, they believed in building families. And oh boy, did they do that. We are optimistic, team-oriented. We love creativity. We love work. And we love personal gratification. And we're going to stay young. There's no doubt about it. We are self-centered. We are judgmental. And we love being needed. We don't expect something for nothing either, but demand to get what we're worth. We had a lot of heroes. Defining moments. McCarthy hearings, Rosa Parks, I remember these. Kennedy elected and Kennedy's both assassinated. Woodstock and Vietnam. Now, Vietnam was very detrimental to this generation because it separated our generation. We had some that went to war and we had some that went to Canada. This is the first time since the Civil War in the United States of America where there was such division in politics. We're seeing it again, but it started in this generation. And we had our heroes. And again, John Kennedy was my personal hero, as you heard earlier. So baby boomers, we believe in growth and expansion. We believe it's good. We believe and think of ourselves as stars because we are. We pursue our own self-personal gratification because nobody's going to do it for you. we have always defined as cool because after all, it is all about us and we be cool. We are definitely good workers. In fact, we created the 60-hour work week. We get up in the morning, go to work. Both parents are working now in this generation. But we love the work because we're looking for that personal gratification. We look to the future, which is now retirement, and we're still working. Look at me. And we're good at relationships, maybe not marital, but we love people. We are social. Our generation is very, very social. We are high on personal relationships, as I said. We're into stress learning. We do things at the last minute. That's just the way we are. We love projects that can cite us as being a part of it. Why? Because it's all about us. We rarely place family ahead of their job. Rarely. Again, we created the 60-hour work week. We want to please. One of our main goals is we want to please. We want to be cited as being a part of everything. So we will work our butt off, but we will be recognized. And if we're not recognized, we ain't working our butt off anymore. So again, recognition is way high up there. We reward work ethic and long hours. We're into long hours. We're very personable. And if you don't ask me how I'm doing today, I'm going to tell you anyway. So guess who we created? We created the Gen Xers. This generation is into diversity, flexibility, balance, work and fun, freedom, autonomy, and family. Did I say balance, work and fun? Oh, and did I say family and freedom? Oh yeah, this generation wants that. This generation is more diverse than any generation before them. In my generation, if a Catholic married a Jew, it was sinful. We've gotten over that. We are now having very mixed cultural marriages and they're working very well. But this family is about freedom and being with their family. This generation, you will work very, very hard to have family time. So this generation has balance, quality of life, informality, and self-reliance. So I put this picture up here because this is my son changing his son's diaper. How do you learn how to do that? I'll tell you, his father never knew how to do that. But this generation has figured it out. This generation has figured out how they can have a balance of life and work, how the dad comes home and doesn't just mow the lawn, change the oil, and work on the car. This generation is in the house helping the mom who's also working. This generation, the guys do the laundry, the women mows the lawn. They share responsibilities. I don't know why the heck we didn't figure that out. It sure would have been a heck of a lot easier. But this generation is fun. They're exciting. And this generation discovered scrubs. Why? Because it's more comfortable. They don't have a lot of respect for authority. This generation discovered the 12-hour workday. Why? Yeah, so they can be with their families. Yeah, they work 3 12s and off 4. Sure, it's more family. They had a lot of defining moments too. But heroes, you ask them who their hero is, and they don't have any. Well, yeah, they do. But it's not like a national hero, not like a John F. Kennedy or Martin Luther King or a Dalai Lama. No, this is someone that's usually close to them, someone that they can relate to. Work ethic, we will have a life. That is their work ethic. Approach to authority is casual. They thrive on technology, always want more. They're skeptical and they're attracted to the edge. Again, their work ethic is freedom, critical, independent, self-directed, not intimidated by authority. They love multitasking, need praise and feedback, but don't we all? If possible, change the way you do things at work to meet their lifestyle or they'll quit. They are not dedicated like the boomers or our veterans. To them, it's just a job. They need a lot with freedom. I can't say that enough. They're impatient. They're cynical. They have poor people skills. Why? Because this generation was named the latchkey kid, right? This generation had to stay home because their moms and dads worked a 60-hour work week, right? So they were sent home from school alone. They went in, they locked the door, and they turned on TV. There was not a lot of interaction even at the dinner table because mom just got home from work and she still has to do all the yard work while dad's out mowing the lawn. There's really no time to even sit down at a dinner table. And where did we used to communicate? At the dinner table. So they're sitting in front of the TV with the TV dinner while mom and dad are doing whatever and eating on the run. And so they have not developed really good people skills. Now, as this generation gets older, obviously they've got better skills, but some of them in the younger years of this generation do not. And they do not trust corporate structure. Why? Why should they? Their parents worked 60-hour work weeks. Their parents got laid off or downsized. Why should they be loyal? So hierarchy systems are dumb to Gen Xers. Autocratic behavior is unacceptable. Time management is an insult because somehow it's built in with these guys. Micromanagement is an insult, and meetings in general are a total waste of time. The baby boomers brought their work home, and the Gen Xers bring their home to work. Oh, what's happening here? I'm changing pictures, but not my slides. So let's try that. Nope. All right, sorry about that. So our next generation, the Millennials, also known as the Xers or Generation Y. So if you hear one of those terms, it is this generation that was born between 1981 and 1996. The events and trends is, as you see, child focus. They've had a lot of hard stuff coming up in their life. The first school shooting, this generation has come of age through challenging recession. They have breaking levels of college debt. They are the first generation that has huge college debt. And they also have a pervasive fear that Social Security might not be there for them. Yep, at this age, they're already worried about Social Security not being there. This is a fun generation. They are optimistic, civic duty, confident, they love achievement, and they're into diversity. If you think the Gen Xers were into diversity, we are seeing more and more same-sex marriages with this generation. We are seeing more and more and more multicultural marriages. There's a lot of diversity out there, and they eat it up, and I love it. I love it. I mean, we are becoming more and more of a diverse universe, so we need to accept it, and this generation has. They have a lot of heroes, a lot of them, but hey, for the first time, they actually have a woman. And when I saw who their heroes were, it's like Christopher Reeves, really? Superman wasn't around when this generation was kids. That was my generation. So why Christopher Reeves? Well, if you recall, Christopher Reeves had a huge accident where he was in a horse accident and got paralyzed. Well, Christopher Reeves literally, not physically, but literally picked himself up and fought his spinal cord injury, donated tons of money, hundreds of millions of dollars to research. And before this young man died, he could actually move 2 of his fingers. So he's our hero. So they love community involvements. This generation is more and more like a boomer than the generation before them. They like working as a team. So again, we're back to teamwork, where generation the generation before were not so much into teamwork. They're in family work. They do look for attention, and they do respect authority, unlike their parents. They're high maintenance, but they're still getting used to the workforce, and their enthusiasm and high expectations are definitely brought to the workplace and need to be celebrated. Optimistic, they're tenacious. They love multi-skilling. These kids have technical skills. I swear, I think when they're born, there's a chip embedded in the back of their neck that helps them with all the techno stuff. If I have a problem with any of my technology at home, I call one of my grandkids. This generation will get it done. And they're focused on community. They do have an inability to deal with conflict, and there is a soccer mom intervention. So what I'm saying here is this generation has had most everything done for them. This generation has been given just about everything that they want. So when I was a kid and I got, I never did get an F, but when I got a D in geometry, whose fault was it? It was mine. Yeah, my parents made me sit my butt at the kitchen table and do homework until I brought that grade up. So today, in this generation, if they got a D in geometry, whose fault is it? Yep, the teacher's. It's not the kid's fault. So mom and dad go down there, or they email or text the teacher, and how dare you give Johnny a D in geometry? So mom and dad have taken care of the conflict. These kids have never had to face it on their own. So what happens the very first time one of these kids have a fallout with their girlfriend or boyfriend? Can mom and dad fix that? No. So in this generation, we are really seeing the beginning of spikes in suicides. They can't deal with it. So be aware of it. So the Y chromosome, why get a job? Why leave home? Why get a car? Why should I clean my room? Why should I wash my clothes? Why buy my food? I've got people to do that. So guess who they created? Oh yeah, and we just keep going, don't we? Life just keeps getting better. We have Generation Z. Generation Z was between the years 1997 and 2015. Gen Z can't grasp the significance of the horror of 9/11 because to them it will always be a part of their history. Now it happened after these kids were born. Well, some of them, because it happened in 2001, but to them it's just going to be a part of history. To me, that's kind of sad. This generation is raised on technology. They're not afraid of anything. They're into truth and loyalty. They're very environmentally conscious, which I like. They're flexible and open to change. They seek diversity. Oh, that's a little scary. And they do have some baby boomer characteristics. These kids give up toys between the ages of 3 and 5 and go for computers and electronics. What happened to our babies? This generation feels like they are the entitled generation. If they want it, somebody will get it for them. So they spend a total of $51 billion every year on themselves. Not college tuition, not help pay the rent, not help buy the groceries, but on themselves. Families spend an additional $170 billion on them. For real? 86% have televisions in their room. 69% have video games. And 44 million have their own cell phones. And when I looked this up just a week ago, I'll bet that 44 million has gone up since then, because I bet they're buying trillion a day. Okay, 1,000 a day. They've got cell phones. They have never known the world without internet, cell phones, or iPads. Have always had instant access to information. Are tired of hearing about the environment. Don't know failure. Prefer texting to talking, which is a problem. And they're growing up fast. So here's how most of them earn their money. Of course, the majority get an allowance. I never got an allowance. Work part-time, receive money as gifts, make money online or for themselves, or work full-time. 9% work full-time, 9%. And a lot of these kids are in their 20s. So there's a growing number of hours spent on the mobile devices, as we all are witness to, especially social media. This is contributing to the growth in this generation's anxiety and depression. Cyberbullying is huge. Look, even our dogs are on cell phones. Here's what they use the most. This is TV at the bottom. The boomers are still TV watchers. So they did have some defining moments. Of course, 9/11, but most of them don't believe it. More and more school shootings all the time. I mean, all the time. It's just scary to turn on the news. An economic recession, Boston Marathon bombing, Las Vegas shootings. It's constant shootings. And you know, part of that is because they are on social media or they're playing games. And have you seen a lot of these games? All they do is shoot them up. I mean, they shoot them up. So guess what, guys? We have another generation. It's called Generation Alpha. It started in 2016 and it will end in 5 more years, 2025. With this generation, of course, who knows exactly what their characteristics will be, but we can almost guess. Screens of some sort are placed in front of these kids from the youngest age as pacifiers, entertainers, and educational aids. And I think babysitters. This extended exposure during their formative years will amount to even shorter attention spans. Oh my gosh. Shorter than the Z generation. It will increase their digital literacy to impaired social formation. These kids will not know how to talk to each other. And I'm really happy that some of them are socializing in church groups and school groups. A lot of them are in, dance classes, acrobatic classes, because if not, these kids will have no idea how to talk to each other. These kids will never know how to resolve conflict because their parents, their grandparents are out there doing it for them. More pads, oh yeah, more screens in front of our babies. So this will probably be the best educated generation we have ever had. They're technology immersed. I mean, they hit the screens as babies. Oh my gosh. Not only do they have a chip in the back of their neck, but they have one in both thumbs. Most of them will live in divided homes, meaning they will not live with both parents at the same time. And they will outnumber boomers, so this they're coming along, and they are materially endowed. They will be given everything, everything. So, in the past, being educated meant knowing lots about the past. In the 21st century, it will increasingly mean looking to the future. So you need to keep generational dynamics in mind. Allow for blurring, because like I said, if you're raised by a different generation than your parent generation, you will have some of these other qualities. Celebrate and utilize the differences because they're pretty awesome, actually. You just can't let them get to you. Educate yourself about the generations and educate the people around you. Today's American workforce is unique and singular. Never before has there been a workforce and workplace so diverse in so many ways. Here's a favorite reading of mine. Respect the elders, teach the young, cooperate with the pack, play when you can, hunt when you must, rest in between. Share your affections, voice your feelings, and always leave your mark. So if anyone would like a copy of this, please contact me and I'll be more than happy to share it. And yes, this was my first iPhone that I ever had, and we could pull it with a string. It was pretty fun. So before I end, I want to read something to you, and I want you just to sit back and relax. It's really more for my generation, but you can put your own names in to meet your generation. So here goes. And I have to give Dr. Oplis Walker credit for this because he's a boomer and he would be mad at me if I didn't give him credit. So long ago and far away in a land that time forgot, before the days of Dylan or the dawn of Camelot, there lived a race of innocents, and they were you and me. For Ike was in the White House in the land where we were born, where navels were for oranges and Peyton Place was porn. We danced to Little Darlin' and sang to Stagger Lee. We cried for Buddy Holly in the land that made me me. We had a Mr. Wizard, but not a Mr. T. And Oprah couldn't talk yet in the land that made me me. We had our share. We had our share. I don't know where I was. We had our share of heroes. We never thought they'd go. At least not Bobby Darin or Marilyn Monroe. For youth was still eternal and life was yet to be. And Elvis was forever in the land that made me me. Buicks came from portholes and sideshows came from freaks, and bathing suits came big enough to cover both our cheeks. And middle-aged was 35 and old was 43, and ancient were our parents in the land that made me me. So now we face a brave new world in slightly larger jeans and wonder why they're using smaller print in magazines. And we tell our children's children of the way it used to be long ago and far away in the land that made me me. Thank you guys. You have been a great audience. Thanks for sticking with us all day long. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see anybody monitoring me. So we are going to end our session today, and please join us. Everybody log out and join us again in the morning at 8 o'clock sharp. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.